Done almost 30 years of doing startups, over a dozen startups, venture-backed companies, and nobody ever once, when they're investing in my company, has asked me what the IP landscape is of my company. And an experienced entrepreneur might go, "Oh, that's not true. They always ask that." No, they don't ask that. They ask, "What is your patents?"
Today, we're talking about Evalify, one of the many companies we're building inside our AI venture studio across multiple industries. So, Evalify is designed to make prior art evaluation dramatically more efficient and measurably more effective. This isn't about replacing attorney judgment, it's about amplifying it. So, let's dive in. I'm joined today by our CEO, Mark McNally, to walk through why we built it, how it works, and what it changes for firms who adopt it. So, Mark, give us some context. What exact challenge are we addressing today with our Valify product?
Well, I'll answer that question first, but then give you some background. I think, first of all, we're just making it really simple to go out there and analyze the IP landscape of any kind of product or company you're building, which right now would require weeks of manual labor from an attorney. And interestingly enough, attorneys have become, and IP professionals have become our largest growth category of customers. So they're seeing the benefit too, because it's grueling work. It's not all that exciting kind of work. It's easy to miss things, and we make it simple with the click of a button. So background, I'd say what's wrong with the IP space in general is that it's really an afterthought. And I'm speaking to myself. I've done almost 30 years of doing startups, over a dozen startups, venture-backed companies, and nobody ever once, when they're investing in my company, has asked me what the IP landscape is of my company. And an experienced entrepreneur might go, "Oh, that's not true. They always ask that." No, they don't ask that. They ask, "What is your patents?" Or "What is your patent strategy?" They ask things like that. But they don't say, like, "Give me a landscape of who else owns patents in your space. What could possibly blow up in your face? What are things that you're trying to steer away from as a product? What are things that you're specifically going after because you can lock up long term?" And I think it's just really interesting because in my career, IP was something always, but it was, maybe if you're doing cell phones or inventing car engines or something, but it's really become the largest category of litigation in the last 20 years is IP. And if you go talk to insurance companies, they'll tell you the largest category that they're paying out claims on that they were not paying out on 20 years ago is IP. And it's skyrocketed the last 5 years. So everywhere you look, IP is becoming a battleground. It's becoming super important. I have personal experience. I got involved with a startup I was very excited about, joined as a senior level, closed a big round right after I joined. And within a few weeks of me joining, I found out that there was a $14 million lawsuit from a very large Fortune 500 company that had no chance of losing. And so a large percentage of the capital that was raised went out the door in that first month to settle that lawsuit. Like, imagine you're that investor. It would have been nice to know beforehand, right? But probably even the company itself could have steered away from getting into that IP debacle had they been able to quickly and easily and cheaply assess the IP risk of doing so. So that's what we're trying to make simple, and yeah, can't wait to talk more about it.
Yeah, Mark. Yeah, that would have been nice to know beforehand, right? Like as you said. Yeah, and just to use your last few words quickly and easily, that is definitely one of the challenges we're addressing. As Mark, I've spoken to quite a few patent attorneys in the last few months, and if I'll just share a few of the challenges I see, I'd love you to add on to it because I know you've talked to some global law firms, and there's some shifting dynamics happening right now. I'll let you talk to that. But two challenges I've seen are one, what I'll call the search tax or the search burden, right? There's actually 200 million patents out there, Mark. And it's, when you're looking for prior art, if you're a new company starting off and you want to figure out, what's your freedom to operate or what patents are out there, you have to search through 200 million patents. And even the most experienced searchers, and I've talked to quite a few, those searches can take from 5 hours to 20 or 30 hours. So that's one challenge. And Mark, maybe you can add some more color because I know you've talked to some very large law firms.
Yeah, I mean, just to expand on what you said first, I think early on we were afraid we were gonna ruffle the feathers of the IP industry, right? And that quickly went away as we started talking to IP professionals, and they started to advise us on the product. And coach us. It was like they were able to very clearly articulate that they know they're good at what they do, but it just takes time and it's an expensive proposition for customers. So if you're going to tell your customer, yeah, I can do that, but it's going to take 3 weeks and be $10,000 or $20,000, that's a fine answer, and that's been the answer forever. But what that does is it forces choices. So if you're a startup or a company building in multiple business units or spinning off a new product, you're only going to push that button and do that final search when you're really, 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 really sure. And quite frankly, we're not even yet into that flow of making that a required next step, right? So you can easily kind of bypass that and start building a product without anybody asking, what's the IP landscape? When the opposite should probably be true. If you're playing with like 40 ideas and you're trying to figure out which one's the green light and you got it down to 7 or 8 and you're super excited, again, whether you're a startup or you're a billion-dollar multinational firm doing a product, IP could steer that decision. So you need to be able to quickly and easily and relatively inexpensively, or at least cost effectively, come up with answers. And so, an attorney, the reason why that, attorneys are embracing this and IP professionals is they're like, I have no quick, easy, cost-effective way to offer my customers what they should have, which is broad analysis before they make these kinds of decisions, right? And that's why they're becoming one of our biggest channels. That's why IP professionals are becoming our biggest customers. Is because we really empower the work they want to do. Now, you're alluding to some of the big firms. I've had a chance to talk to some very large firms, and they'll tell you crazy things like 30% of their multi-billion-dollar global practice is IP litigation, or they call it IP. But the most lucrative and what they really want to be doing is the litigation work, right? But how do you do the litigation work? How do you get the litigation work? They know they get the litigation work by doing that first part, which is the search stuff. Saying, hey, we analyze this patent, it's a good patent, or you can go ahead and move forward. Maybe filing the patent work. For a big firm, that work is relatively low volume, low dollars. It's not the exciting stuff, right? Doing a whole bunch of patent searches and even filing a patent and billing $10,000, $50,000, whatever. To a big firm, that's not the game, right? To a big firm, getting the $2 or $3 million litigation work, that's the game. However, one leads the other. So you fundamentally have to be better and more aggressive at doing that search work, the patent work, in order to put yourself into the litigation flow. And I think that's one of the things we've been hearing resoundingly, which is why some of the big firms are talking about doing something uniquely strategic or something else with us, right? And it's exciting. It's exciting to see the landscape change. I'll make one other comment, which is I think our narrow focus on this IP space has allowed us to build a very unique product. It's allowed us to be very hyper-focused on the unique challenges of that workflow. And I say that because there are some very exciting, impressive legal tech firms out there that have raised gazillions of freaking dollars to go out there and build the monolithic, legal tech platforms. And God bless them. I'm sure there'll be a few of those that emerge over time that do a lot of really cool things out of the box. But I do think right now being niche focused and being excellent at it and being deep at it is what's really standing out to us in the conversations we're having, because they can trust that on that particular workflow, we're going to nail it.
Hey, if I can add some more comments to the amount of time it takes to search. Like I said before, I've talked to patent lawyers in Europe as well as the US, all over the world. And yeah, searches can range from 2 hours to 30, like I said. So when they see a solution like we have, which can shave off a good substantial chunk of time, they get excited, right? And I'm kind of jumping ahead to our solution, which we'll talk about in a minute. But related, because it makes people a little nervous, doesn't it? AI, is it going to take away my job, or is it some, vague thing that I don't really understand how it works? No, the point that we constantly hit on is it's embedded in your workflow. You still have control. You're able to fine tune it and understand all the inputs and outputs. That's very key, right? You don't want some little box working underneath that you have no insight into. Not at all. So we amplify the judgment of the attorneys. Okay, the second problem I see, Mark, is that people have shared with me from the partner level down to those that search all day long on these patents is so it's a two-pronged problem. One is the amount of time. So I call it the search tax or the search burden. But second is the stopping problem. Like, when do you stop? You can always search a little bit longer to make sure you're definitely sure. So that's the other challenge that we help solve with our solution. With our AI, we can quickly get those answers. So Mark, might be a time since we've kind of sketched out some of the challenges we're addressing. Can you talk to a little bit about how Evalify works?
Yeah, like at a super simple level, I look at it as Carfax. If you're familiar with Carfax and you want to do a background check on a used car before you buy it, in the old days you would have to hire an attorney, do some really complicated investigations, try to figure out if there's a wreck or some other thing involved, make sure the title is clean. There's a lot of work you'd have to do manually, and you would never do that, frankly, for most used car purchases, right? Unless you're buying your, used Bentley or something. And so there's a lot of problems within the used car market space. There's a lot of lemons, there's a lot of crashed cars, there's a lot of, conflicted titles. Carfax came along and said, you're just going to give us a VIN number, and we're going to search all the databases. We're going to come back and give you this nice little graphic and report that's in 2 pages summarizing the entire history of the car. And it became the standard. Now you won't buy a car, sell a car. Car dealerships have Carfax reports taped on the windows, right? Now, in a way, that's what we're trying to do with IP, right? It's very manual process right now. It's a lot of bespoke, custom, hand-driven work. It takes time. It's expensive. So you're only going to do it for the most, legitimate, expensive, worthy transactions, where you probably should be doing it for most transactions. And essentially, we made it that simple. You could take a product roadmap, you could take a pitch deck, you could take any kind of documents that document what you're trying to do as a solution or as a product, and upload it into Evalify at the click of a button. We're going to use AI to extract out of that what it is you're actually trying to do. We call it features in data science. We're going to extract the features and understand exactly what you're trying to do as a solution. And we're going to create automatically a search profile based on that. And we go out to a database in over 120 jurisdictions, and we search 180 million global patents. And then we come back, and again with AI, we're going to analyze that, sort it. We produce a score, not unlike a credit score, saying what's the risk of this particular product. And we highlight all the things we think you should know. And again, this all comes back in about 5 minutes. So what are the biggest patent holders in the space you're thinking about that you should know about? What are the relevant patents? How strong is this space in terms of existing patent space, which might make this a weak thing for you? Or how weak is it in terms of like, how big of an opportunity is this for you if you get it right? We even have within the data a chance for you to modify the searches, explore things like what could you do differently to make a stronger patent filing. It really is like more information than you'd probably get in a 3 or 4 week custom search from an attorney with that click of a button. And again, attorneys are embracing that because they're able to give their customers quick answers, give them the answers they want, and then the work that needs to be done on a manual level, where the attorneys make their real value and their money, is that's when you're saying, okay, I want to file something unique, or I want to litigate against this, or I want to go much deeper on a search. That all just tees up that kind of work. So we're just trying to play this crucial first step. And one of the things I believe about AI is a lot of people talk about, you mentioned it, people losing jobs or AI replacing what we do as humans. And look, if I'm being a realist, there's a whole bunch of stuff we do as humans that don't add value in this planet. So I have no problem with AI doing half of that. But that's really not my message. My message really is that AI should allow us to do things we wouldn't do otherwise, right? And so it comes down to that force multiplier. If you would normally search 1 out of 40 products you're thinking about building because of the time and cost, and now you can search 40 out of 40 because of time and cost and tools like this, that's where we need to be going. So again, you're not competing with the current status quo. You're enabling us to do things we wouldn't otherwise do. And I think that's what's most exciting.
Yeah, excellent, Mark. I'm going to amplify a few things you said after seeing patent attorneys use our solution, our product, once again called Evalify. To be clear, we're not just building another search engine. I want to make that super clear, right? We have former 2 people, very great technical background, who have churned out many patents, and they have built this system. And we aren't, and they're treating legalese almost like another language, right? They have a very fine-grained understanding of the technical architecture and the system they built. As you upload any document, like you said, Mark, we can understand the context and really dive deep and find what is out there in terms of competition. And the other thing I like that I've seen people use is once you get a search result, as you said, then you can keep iterating and refining, right? You can click down to the feature level and say, oh, this is good, or maybe not, add it or tweak it. So that's That's the part I like. People are still in control, right? You're not just saying, oh, I turn over everything to my AI digital coworker. No, not at all. You're in control the whole way from the beginning to the end. And people like that. So after talking about the challenge, problem, the solution, how we're unique, I always like to then get into benefits, right? How does this change the game? We've talked throughout the last few minutes about this, but if you had to highlight the top few outcomes, I always like to talk about that. Like at the end of the day, a partner leading a firm, what outcome, Mark, is this delivering to their firm?
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, they're going to, altruistically, their job and goal is to, enable their clients and protect their clients, right? And so by being able to do a much broader range of searches because of speed and cost coming down, right? Or speed going up and cost coming down, the firms themselves are going to be doing a much larger service to their customers, right? So the amount of risk their customers are exposed to, the things they should know going into some of their investments and decisions and on the product level, all that stuff's going to be known up front, and that's exciting. That's going to lead to for an IP professional. That's going to lead to happier clients, more billings. This work is actually going to uncover, again, work that should be done by a human level IP professional. It's going to uncover those things. Like, we're not trying to go that full life cycle. We don't believe that's even realistic. We're just trying to do that nitty gritty, complex search that right now there's no way around, hiring somebody to do an extended, manual process. So for the firm, I think it gets them a lot more opportunities. It protects their clients better. Ultimately, I'm sure it'll drive billings. It'll lead them to where they really want to be doing. And frankly, what AI won't do for a heck of a long time, if ever, is the litigation work. Thinking about how to put together arguments, getting in front of a judge or a jury. Those are the things that IP professionals will be earning their money moving forward on. And this kind of speeding up the first part, think of it as like a funnel. The more work you can do on the search side, the more service you can provide to your customers in that space, the more you're going to feed the core business that will be protected against AI for a long time.
Awesome. If I can add or just reemphasize what you just said, what a handful of patent lawyers shared with me is one, it can elevate a person, an attorney's role, right? You can get some of that drudgery, some of that that very monotonous work pushed off to AI to get it to do that. You can elevate your role and do more strategic work. That's one thing. Second, as you deal with clients, you can actually share some of the concepts you've used, whether AI, and you can choose to share the report that's been generated if you wish as well. But that shows your clients, yeah, you are on the cutting edge. You are using AI. If some of your clients might be wondering, hey, why aren't you with the program? Why aren't you in this latest tech evolution? And so you can show that. So this is pretty exciting. We've covered Evalify, one of our many companies across our venture studio here at Nobody Studios. We've covered the challenge, the solution, the impact, and I might add, maybe we end with this, Mark. As we roll out products, as we develop companies, Mark, do you want to talk about the power of what an advisory board can do and what we're doing here with Evalify?
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, at the studio, we're looking to build lots of interesting things. It pulls us into new directions often. We don't believe in being the smartest people in the room, but we certainly believe in getting smart people in a room. And so for us, it is fundamentally, we're fortunate to have a broad group of supporters with really impressive backgrounds, and that usually is a starting point for our advisory boards. But then we're always reaching out to industry, and we're looking for folks who have strong perspectives and knowledge in this space that ultimately steer us. They usually will represent, a good chunk of them represent our customers, our proxy customers or our perfect customer, but it also will represent, a partner in the space or a possible acquirer in the space and even investors in the space. So that just helps us challenge our thinking along the way. And every time we create a company, we look to spin up an advisory board, and we are able to compensate with equity, some of the best and brightest in the space that hopefully help us get it right more often than not.
And I think if I can add to that and raise it back to the overall Nobody Studios level, that's to me one of the competitive edges that our Nobody Studios offers. A couple things. One is the infrastructure we have built a system to build companies, right? We have the sales, the marketing, the legal, all the operations. Second, I believe, which is a true moat for any company, a defensive position posture, is our distribution ability, right? Our ability to quickly find 10 customers, our ability to find that eventual company that's going to acquire us, because we do have the connection through our investor network. And so maybe, Mark, you can end this session with a few comments, maybe bring it back to the Nobody Studios level. Maybe talk a little bit about our investor network, which can open up so many doors.
Yeah, look, we're very fortunate. I'd like to say it was by design, but every startup founder looks to go out and raise capital. I've been there many times in my career, and angels take all kinds of shapes and sizes and forms. We were able to attract the capital we wanted, and in fact, it started to grow beyond what we initially expected, which was a great thing. But the types of people that we started to attract started to be kind of circles on top of circles, and so it kind of started attracting like people. But we got fortunate that the kind of the caliber in terms of their executive backgrounds and their profiles kind of became really very unique. All very, a lot of them former senior executives at very large companies across industries. A lot of them at the C level, most of them, the senior executive level. And just deep experience, whether it be 25 years in banking or 25 years in hospitality or, 30 years in insurance. Just these clusters of people that, I always say I couldn't afford to pay any one of them an hour to talk to me. They're just at that level, their consulting rate would kill me. But they've got skin in the game. They've supported us. They've invested in us. And past that, they're just all great humans, like universally good people. They're good humans. They're generous with their time. They're generous with their intellect. They don't hesitate to ping me or shoot us an email or a thought or something they've seen in the market or something interesting they've seen that they wanted to know if we're thinking about. And I always say it's kind of our stealth superpower. The reach that they give us is something that we're very fortunate to enjoy.
Awesome, Mark. I'll end with this. Do stay tuned with Nobody Studios, whether it be on LinkedIn or across all our social media channels, as well as YouTube. Every few weeks, Mark and I will get together. I'll interview industry leaders, analysts. I'll do a behind-the-scenes look, which I do every few weeks. And we'll also give you updates on our portfolio companies. So thank you very much for joining us today.